lights go out before my heart does. The street lights dim earlier now as the cold begins to rise, and the sky turns pale and quiet like the sorrow in your eyes. There's a sweater on the bedside where you used to leave your dreams. Now it holds the faintest outline of the things we lost between. The air is filled with echoes of the warmth you used to bring, and the windows breathe the silence like they've forgotten how to sing. Every night grows soft and heavy like a breath that's out of tune, and I trace your name in frost on the fading face of moon. If the winter came more gently, if your fears had found their peace, would we still be sharing evenings in a warmth that doesn't cease? But the lights go out in early winter, and the memories flicker slow. Every shadow feels like something from the love I couldn't show. If the snowfall brings your heartbeat in a moment soft and splinter, you will find me in the quiet where the lights go out in winter. The kettle hums a story of the nights we used to share, where you'd wrap your hands around me just to warm the frozen air. There's a photo near the lamp with your smile half in the dark, and I feel the ache return in the stillness of your mark. The hallway leans in silence, still familiar with your steps, and the cold floor keeps the memory of the promises we kept. Every echo feels like longing, every sigh reminds me why all the warmth began to falter in the winter of goodbye. If the truth had been more honest, if my heart had spoken clear, would your hand still be beside me when the winter drew us near? But the lights go out in early winter, and the memories flicker slow. Every shadow feels like something from the love I couldn't show. If the snowfall brings your heartbeat in a moment soft and splinter, you will find me in the quiet where the lights go out in winter. What if time had held you softly? What if love had stayed awake? Would your voice still fill the doorway with the promises we'd make? Sometimes cold can feel like comfort, sometimes warmth can feel like pain, and I wonder if you knew this when you walked into the rain. Now the world is hushed and trembling as the night begins to fall, and I hear your name in distance like a whisper down the hall. If the season feels too heavy, if your heart begins to splinter, I'll be waiting in the shadows where the lights fade out in winter. Still here in the dark. Yes, the lights go out in early winter, but my heart won't let you go. Every flicker in the lamplight echoes everything we know. If tomorrow brings you longing or a truth you can't re-enter, you will find me quietly breathing where the lights go out in winter. So I sit beside the window, watching snow collect and rest, and I whisper to the darkness all the words I once repressed. If the wind should guide you homeward with a memory bittersweet, I'll be waiting in the winter where our our shadows used to meet.
Cold hands, still waiting where you left. The winter air is trembling in the hallway by the door, where your shadow always lingered, like a warmth I can't restore. There's a coat you used to borrow, with the zipper slightly torn. I still hang it every evening, like you'll wear it one more morning. The floor creaks with your memory, in the cold between the boards. And I swear I hear you breathing when the quiet time affords. Every corner holds a whisper, every window chills your name, and the frost along the edges writes a story lost to blame. If the night had stayed much softer, if your fear had not been strong, would you still be standing with me, saying nothing felt so wrong? 'Cause my cold hands wait at the door for the love we felt before. Every winter brings your silence, every snowfall asks for more. If the wind recalls your footsteps in the way it did before, I'll be here where you once held me. Cold hands waiting at the door. The teapot hums a memory of the nights we stayed awake, when your voice was soft as amber and your heart too quick to break. I still warm the cups you favored, in the hope you might come in, but the steam fades into nothing, like the warmth we couldn't win. There's a rhythm in the raindrops, mixed with snow upon the sill, and it feels like you are speaking, though the world is strangely still. I keep tracing all the moments where I should have pulled you near. Everyone becomes a winter, every breath becomes a year. If my words have found the courage, if my heart had held the truth, would your footsteps still remember where we lost our trembling youth? 'Cause my cold hands wait at the door for the love we felt before. Every winter soft as dusk but sharp as night. And I wonder if you feel it when the snow begins to fall. All the moments we The street is washed in moonlight, like a river made of frost. And the quiet hum of midnight makes me count the things I lost. There's a corner where you held me when the wind was cold and thin. Now the same cold breath surrounds me, like it's trying to pull me in. Your laughter once lived softly in the echoes of this place, and I swear I see a shadow in the shape of passing haze. I walk slow near the lamppost where you kissed me in the snow, and the memory grows brighter every time the cold wind blows. If the night had kept you warmer, if your fear had found its rest, would you still be standing with me where my heartbeat loved you best? 'Cause it's midnight, winter on your street, where our footprints used to meet. Every snowfall draws your outline in the places we'd retreat. If the cold returns your longing, or the past feels bittersweet, you will find me walking slowly through the winter on your street. You will find me walking slowly through the winter on your street. The cafe by the corner still has lights in faded gold, and I hear you in the window like a memory grown old. There's a table by the heater where you always warmed your hands. Now the steam upon the glass writes the truth I understand. Your voice returns in fragments, in the hum of passing cars, in the sigh of distant windows, in the trembling of the stars. Every sound becomes a story of the nights we used to keep, and the winter air grows thicker with the things I didn't speak. If my words had found their courage, if my heart had learned its truth, would your footsteps still be wandering through the winter of our youth? 'Cause it's midnight, winter on your street, where our footprints used to meet. Every snowfall draws your outline in the places we'd retreat. If the cold returns your longing, or the past feels bittersweet, you will find me walking slowly through the winter on your street. You will find me walking slowly through the winter on your street. What if time had held you gently? What if love had stayed more warm? Would we still be sharing laughter in the comfort of this storm? All the choices we abandoned, all the truths we left behind, echo softly through the streetlights like a ghost inside my mind. Now I stand beside the crosswalk where you whispered, don't let go. And I held the words inside me till the moment chilled the snow. Still the memory keeps breathing in the hush of midnight's beat. And I find you in the silence of this winter on your street. I still walk here where you loved me. It's midnight, winter on your street, where our hearts forgot to meet. Every shadow holds your presence in a fragile broken sheet. If tomorrow brings you waking from a love you can't defeat, I'll be waiting past the lamplight in the winter on your street. So I wander through the snowfall, let it gather at my feet. And I hum the songs you taught me in a rhythm soft and sweet. If the night should ever guide you back to where our seasons meet, you will find me in the quiet of your midnight winter street. Wrapped in quiet as the snowfall starts to ride, and it settles on the windows like the truth behind your eyes. There's a cup you left half finished on the table by the light. Every sip still tastes like winter, every shadow tastes like night. Your handwriting on the coaster says a line you never spoke, just a single fading sentence from a heart already broke. And I read it every evening like a message sent too late, while the snow collects reminders of the things we couldn't say. If your voice had learned to open, if my heart had learned to stay, maybe now we wouldn't crumble in this cold December way. But the snow kept all the words you didn't say, every whisper, every phrase, every tremble in your silence, every tear you hid away. If the winter brings you longing in the cold of yesterday, you will hear me in the snowfall, in the words you couldn't say. The streets are soft and empty in the hush of falling white, and I walk where you once held me under dim and fragile light. There's a bench beside the crosswalk where your secrets fill the air. You were shaking from the inside, wishing I could see you there. But I missed the quiet breaking of the love inside your chest. And I let the moment fade while your heart tried its best. Now the world feels strangely hollow, where your warmth once dared to stay. And the snowfall paints your silence in a slow and silver way. If the night had stayed more open, if I'd listened through the ache, would your words have found their freedom? Would they find me wide awake? But the snow kept all the words you didn't say. Every whisper, every phrase, every tremble in your silence, every tear you hid away. If the winter brings you longing in the cold of yesterday, you will hear me in the snowfall, in the words you couldn't say. What if truth had come much sooner? What if fear had stepped aside? Would your voice have found its courage to stay warm and never hide? I remember how you trembled, like the world was far too wide, and your breath became a snowflake, too afraid to land or glide. Sometimes hearts speak without speaking, sometimes hurt becomes a storm, sometimes silence says I love you in a language lost to form. And the winter hears it clearly as the world begins to sway. All the things you didn't tell me, all the words you put away. The snow knows everything you couldn't say.
Snowfall knows my name, even when you don't anymore. The snow begins its drifting across the quiet, empty street, and the world feels slightly fragile underneath my trembling feet. There's a glove you left behind you on the shelf by my front door. I still keep it where you placed it, like you'll take it back once more. The windows glow in silver from the cold December air, and the silence grows much deeper when I feel you're still not there. Every breath becomes a memory of the warmth we couldn't save, and the frost along the edges writes your name in quiet waves. If the world had held us closer, if the hours froze in time, maybe winter wouldn't echo all the ways you weren't mine. But the snowfall knows my name, every whisper, every ache. It remembers how you held me when the nights began to break. If the cold wind brings your memory in a fragile, trembling frame, I will follow every snowflake, for the snowfall knows my name. The kettle hums so softly as it warms the frozen air, and I swear I hear your laughter where the shadows linger there. There's a note you never finished, left beneath the books you read, every sentence slightly trembling with the things you left unsaid. Now the streetlights glow like candles, flickering through winter's breath, and your voice comes through the distance like a promise kept in death. Though you're gone, the season holds you in the hush between the trees, and your absence shapes the coldness every time I try to breathe. If my love had been more steady, if my fear had stepped aside, would you still be walking near me through the snow we once defied? But the snowfall knows my name, every whisper, every ache. It remembers how you held me when the nights began to break. If the cold wind brings your memory in a fragile, trembling frame, I will follow every snowflake, for the snowfall knows my name. What if time had turned much slower on the night you walked away? What if love had stayed much warmer in the things we didn't say? Sometimes leaving feels like melting in a storm you couldn't fight. Sometimes warmth is just a moment lost between the day and night. And I wonder if you feel it when the first snow starts to fall. All the winters we imagined, all the dreams we left too small. Your soft whisper, faint but certain, drifts across the frozen frame in the quiet of December, where the snowfall knows my name. It still knows when you don't. Yes, the snowfall knows my name, and it carries all we were. Every breath of winter's aching keeps me closer still to her. If tomorrow brings you longing or a memory you claim, you will find me in the snowfall, where the cold repeats my name. So I walk into the stillness, letting winter fold me in, and I whisper to the shadows all the ways we could have been. If the world should ever call you through a snow you can't contain, I'll be waiting in the quiet, where the snowfall knows my name.
Some cold doesn't freeze you. Some cold remembers you. The morning drifts in silver through the cracks between the blinds, and the cold begins its whisper in the corners of my mind. There's a jacket you abandoned, still half zipped beside the floor. I pick it up some nights and wonder why you left it by the door. The hall still holds your footsteps like an echo caught in time, and the walls remember breathing when your heartbeat echoed mine. Every snowfall on the pavement sounds like how you softly came, and the winter feels much sharper in the cold that learned your name. If the night had held you closer, if your fear had lost its claim, would you still be sharing warmth here? Would the cold forget your name? 'Cause the cold learned how to say your name in the wind and in the rain. Every breath of frozen weather feels like calling you again. If tomorrow brings you longing, or a heart too worn to blame, you will hear me in the winter, in the cold that says your name. The kettle hums a memory of the nights you stayed awake, tracing circles in your teacup when your hands began to shake. There's a chair you used to claim here by the window looking wide. Now it sits in quiet yearning, like it's waiting for your sigh. Your whisper lives in corners where the winter settles slow, and I hear it in the stillness like a truth you couldn't show. If I'd held your heart more gently, if I'd stayed through every flame, would the cold feel less familiar? Would it still repeat your name? Every memory turns to frostbite, every tear becomes a plea, and I wonder if you feel this when the night forgets to breathe. 'Cause the cold learned how to say your name in the wind and in the rain. Every breath of frozen weather feels like calling you again. If tomorrow brings you longing, or a heart too worn to blame, you will hear me in the winter, in the cold that says your name. What if time had stayed beside us? What if fear had lost its art? Would your footsteps still be warming all the corners of my heart? What if truth had dared to tremble? What if love had learned to stay? Would the winter still be singing all the things you walked away? Now the world grows pale and fragile as the snowfall starts to glow, and your voice becomes a whisper in the rhythm of the snow. Every flake becomes a moment, falling soft but never tame, and the cold keeps gently calling all the letters of your name. I hear you in the cold. Yes, the cold learned how to say your name, though I try to do the same. Every echo in the twilight holds the warmth we couldn't claim. If tomorrow brings you hurting, or a memory you can't frame, you will find me softly waiting in the cold that says your name. So I walk through every season with your shadow tucked inside, and the winter breathes your story like a truth it can't divide. If the world should lead you homewards through the frost you can't reclaim, you will hear me in the distance, in the cold that speaks your name. used to sleep. The morning drips in pale light through the curtain you once drew, and the frost upon the window seems to spell a quiet hue. There's a hollow in the bedsheets where your heartbeat used to stay, and I press my hand upon it just to feel you slip away. Your pillow holds the scent of all the nights we didn't speak, every silence that felt heavy, every promise left too weak. Still the air is filled with echoes of the warmth we couldn't keep, and the winter turns the bedroom to a memory buried deep. If the cold had come much slower, if your fears had learned to rest, would your breathing still be with me? Would your heart feel second best? 'Cause the last warmth on your side of the bed keeps repeating what we said. All the nights we held our heartbreak, all the tears we left unshed. If the winter brings your longing with the truth you always fled, you will find me gently reaching for the warmth you left instead. The kettle sings its low note while the window fogs with white, and I'm wrapped inside a sweater you forgot that final night. There's a mug you used on Sundays still untouched upon the shelf, and I hold it like a feeling that I kept too much myself. Your voice returns and whispers in the creak of wooden beams, and I see us in the corner where you cry between your dreams. If I'd held you when you trembled, if I'd stayed when you withdrew, would the cold have been much softer? Would we find a way we knew? Every breath becomes a question, every memory becomes light, and I wonder if you feel me when you try to sleep at night. 'Cause the last warmth on your side of the bed keeps repeating what we said. All the nights we held our heartbreak, all the tears we left unshed. If the winter brings your longing with the truth you always fled, you will find me gently reaching for the warmth you left instead. What if love had broken slower? What if time had stayed in place? Would your hand still warm the pillow where I searched for your embrace? What if truth had come much earlier, not in shadows, not in fear? Would you still be by this bedside telling me I'm always here? Sometimes warmth remains in absence, sometimes cold forgets to kill, sometimes love becomes a moment, frozen but familiar still. And the winter keeps reminding where your tenderness once spread, in the fading fragile outline on your empty half of bed. I still feel you here in the warmth you left behind. Yes, the last warmth on your side of the bed the warmth you left instead. So I smooth the empty blankets where your dreaming used to lie, and I whisper to the shadows all the reasons we ran dry. If the winter ever calls you with a longing sharp and red, you will find me softly waiting on your side of our old bed. Snow. The evening sky was trembling with a pale, exhausted glow, and the quiet fell much deeper than the world will ever know. There's a doorway you stepped out of, with your breath so thin and white, and the snow beneath your footsteps softly swallowed all your light. Your shadow faded slowly where the street lamp kissed the ground, and it lingered like a question left without a proper sound. Every flake that fell behind you held the warmth you tried to show. If the winter had been gentle, if your fear had learned to rest, would you still be here beside me? Would my hands hold what was left? 'Cause the night you melted into snow left a quiet I still know. Every drifting fragile memory falls the way you let me go. If tomorrow brings you aching in a way you couldn't show, you will find me in the shadows where you melted into snow. The window's fog was silence from the warmth that used to be, and I traced your faded outline like a half-remembered plea. There's a mug you never emptied, still untouched beside the sink, and I hold it close each evening just to feel the things you think. Your laughter hides in corners of the room you left behind, like a ghost that learned the timing of a cold and fragile mind. If I'd held your heart more tightly, if I'd stayed when you withdrew, would your warmth have stayed unbroken? Would I still be close to you? Every whisper freezes softly, every memory turns slow, and I wonder if you miss me in the nights of drifting snow. 'Cause the night you melted into snow left a quiet I still know. Every drifting fragile memory falls away, you let me go. If tomorrow brings you aching in a way you couldn't show, you will find me in the shadows where you melted into snow. What if time had held you warmer? What if truth had dared to speak? Would your voice still warm the doorstep where you vanished every week? What if love had come much sooner? What if silence broke its chain? Would your breath still cloud the winter in the soft December rain? Now the world grows dim around me, as the snowfall starts to glow, and your shape returns in fragments in the places you would go. Every flake becomes a memory of the night you whispered low. All the warmth you tried to give me melted quietly to snow. Break, whispered, I lost you in the snow. Yes, the night you melted into snow left a truth I can't outgrow. Every echo in the twilight holds the place you used to know. If the winter brings you sorrow, or a love you can't let go, you will find me softly waiting where you melted into snow. So I'll walk into the quiet where the memories unfold, and I breathe the winter slowly like your story still retold. If the world should lead you homewards through the white and distant glow, I'll be standing in the stillness where you melted into snow. Some warmth doesn't vanish, it hides in the snow. The morning drifts in softly through a window pale and thin, and the frost along the edges feels like where your hands had been. There's a sweater on the bedside with a thread you used to pull, and I hold it to my chest like it still remembers you. The air is cold but gentle as it leans across the floor, and the quiet hums a memory of the heart you wore before. Every snowflake past the railing glows the way your laughter glowed, and the world feels strangely warmer from the warmth you left in snow. If your voice had broken sooner, if your truth had learned to stay, would your breath still shape the winter? Would you melt into the day? 'Cause the warmth you left inside the snow still returns with every glow. Every drift becomes a memory, every hush becomes a vow. If tomorrow brings you longing, or a past you can't outgrow, you'll find me in the quiet where your warmth still lights the snow. The hallway keeps your footsteps in the rhythm you once made, and the lamplight bends toward evening like it knows you slowly fade. There's a mug you left unfinished with your touch along the rim, and I hold it when I'm lonely just to feel the ghost of him. Your whisper folds the stillness like the wind is learning you, and the shadows stretch like memories of the things we never grew. If I'd held your doubts more gently, if I'd stayed through what you'd show, would your warmth have stayed beside me, not just hidden in the snow? Every moment thaws so slowly, every sigh becomes a plea, and I wonder if you feel this when the winter learns to breathe. 'Cause the warmth you left inside the snow still returns with every glow. vow. If tomorrow brings you longing, or a past you can't outgrow, you'll find me in the quiet, where your warmth still lights the snow. What if time had stayed beside you? What if fear had lost its voice? Would your smile still warm the doorway? Would we call it still a choice? What if truth had come much sooner? What if winter bowed its head? Would you still be tracing snowflakes on the nights we shared a bed? Now the night grows faint and silver as the cold begins to glow, and your outline forms in shadows on the path of fallen snow. Every flake becomes a heartbeat in the places we would go, and the warmth you left behind me never fully learned to go. You're still here in the snow. Yes, the warmth you left inside the snow stays with me more than you know. Every whisper in the midnight sounds like footsteps soft and low. If the winter brings you yearning for a truth you couldn't show, you will find me gently waiting where your warmth still lights the snow. So I walk into the stillness with your shadow in my hands, and I breathe the winter slowly like a song it understands. If the world should lead you homeward through the white and amber glow, you will see me in the snowfall, where your warmth still waits below. There's a window still waiting for your light. The winter sky is heavy with a pale and frozen blue, and the window by the bedside still remembers watching you. There's a chair you used to lean on where your sweater gently fell. I still keep it in that corner like a truth I didn't tell. The night grows slow and quiet with the hum of distant snow, and the room begins to glisten in the way you used to glow. Every breath I make turns fragile as it fogs the frosted pane, and I trace your name in silence, knowing nothing feels the same. If the winter had been kinder, if the night had bent its spine, would your footsteps still be near me? Would your heart still echo mine? 'Cause the window still waits for your light every morning, every night. Every frost becomes a memory of the things we couldn't write. If the snowfall brings your shadow, soft and trembling, barely bright, you will find me by the window where I wait for your lost light. The floorboards sigh beneath me as I wander through the hall, and the picture by the doorway seems to almost hear me call. There's a whisper in the kettle from the night you warmed your hands. Now the steam curls into silence, like it's trying to understand. Your laughter lives in corners of the room you left behind, like a faint and fading candle in the twilight of my mind. If I'd held your world more gently, if I'd stayed when you withdrew, would the winter feel less endless? Would the dark feel less like you? Every memory turns to snowfall, every truth becomes a plea. And I wonder if you feel this in the nights you fail to breathe. 'Cause the window still waits for your light every morning, every night. Every frost becomes a memory of the things we couldn't write. If the snowfall brings your shadow, soft and trembling, barely bright, you will find me by the window where I wait for your lost light. What if time had held you softly? What if fear had bowed its head? Would your voice still warm the quiet in the space beside my bed? What if truth had come much earlier, not too broken, not too late? Would you still be lighting windows with a love we didn't break? Now the world turns faintly silver as the snow begins to glow, and your name becomes a whisper in the hush of falling snow. Every flake contains a moment, every drift becomes a sight of the window that keeps waiting for your gentle vanished light. Silence holds a memory, every breath still feels your flight. If tomorrow brings you longing for the warmth you set alight, you will see me softly standing by the window with your light. So I lean into the stillness where your shadow used to shine, and I breathe the winter gently like a promise out of time. If the world should lead you homeward through a path of blue and white, you will find me by the window, waiting softly for your light.
Some words never reach the air. Winter kept yours.
The first cold breath of evening slides along the window frame, and the silence folds around me as it softly says your name. There's a notebook on the table with your writing half begun, just a line you never finished, fading gently in the sun. Your coat still holds its shape here, like you're wearing it again. And the color smells like moments when your heart was giving in. Every corner feels like missing, every pause repeats your scent. And I swear the winter whispers all the words you really meant. If the night had held your trembling, if your voice had found its rest, would your truth have warmed the quiet? Would you lay it on my chest? 'Cause the winter kept the words you meant to say, folded softly in its gray. Every snowfall feels like heartbeat, every hush like your relay. If tomorrow brings you aching for the love you pushed away, you will find me in the stillness with the words you meant to say. The kitchen hums in silver from the dawn you used to greet, and the kettle sings a whisper of the warmth beneath your feet. There's a cup you left forgotten, with your fingerprints still clear, and I hold it in the evening just to feel you somehow near. Your laughter hides in shadows in the doorways when they creak, and your breath appears in echoes like a voice too soft to speak. If I'd heard the truth you buried, if I'd stayed when fear was bent, would the winter feel as haunted? Would I know what you had meant? Every memory turns to frostbite, every silence grows intense, and I wonder if you feel me in the cold you never meant. 'Cause the winter kept the words you meant to say, folded softly in its gray. Every snowfall feels like heartbeat, every hush like your relay. If tomorrow brings you aching for the love you pushed away, you will find me in the stillness with the words you meant to say. What if time had held you gently? What if fear had dropped its shield? Would your voice have warmed the distance that your silence tried to wield? What if truth had learned to surface through the storms you held inside? Would you still be standing with me in a love we never tried? Now the night turns faint and silver as the snow begins to fall, and it carries all your heartbeats through the quiet of the hall. Every flake becomes a message of the things you never sent, and the winter keeps them safely, all the words you never meant. I hear them, even now. Yes, the winter kept the words you meant to say in its soft and fragile way. Every breath of frozen evening feels like you in slow decay. If the cold returns your longing, or a truth you can't convey, you will find me gently waiting with the words you meant to say. So I walk into the quiet where your memories stay warm, and I breathe the winter slowly through the comfort of its form. If the world should lead you homeward through the snow you can't allay, you will hear me in the stillness, holding words you meant to say.
Someone never makes it home. Yours was one of them.
The street outside is freezing, but it's quieter than before. And the frost along the mailbox creeps like secrets on the door. There's a letter you were writing, still unfinished on the stand. Half a sentence, half a heartbreak, left in trembling of your hand. The window hums with cold air in the silence of the dawn, and the world feels strangely hollow in the space where you've withdrawn. I can hear your fading laughter in the corners of this room, and the warmth you tried to give me lingers faintly like perfume. If the winter had been softer, if your fear had not been strong, would you still be breathing near me? Would we find where we belong? 'Cause your warmth never made it home, left somewhere in the cold unknown. Every snowflake holds you trembling, every street repeats your tone. If the winter brings your memory in a fragile aching moan, you will find me softly reaching for the warmth that felt like home. The kitchen lights are dimming in the early silver light, and I hold the mug you cherished just to make the world feel right. There's a photo near the doorway with your smile caught mid-repeat, and I touch your frozen laughter like a wound I can't defeat. Your steps still haunt the hallway, in the spaces night forgets, and the air becomes a witness to the things we left as debts. If I'd held your heart more gently, if I'd listened when you cried, would your warmth have found its shelter? Would it still be by my side? Every memory turns to snowfall, every word becomes a plea, and I wonder if you feel this when the cold leans heavily, 'cause your warmth never made it home, left somewhere in the cold unknown. Every snowflake holds your trembling, every street repeats your tone. If the winter brings your memory in a fragile aching moan, you will find me softly reaching for the warmth that felt like home. What if time had stayed beside us? What if fear had learned to rest? Would you still be warming evenings in the home you love the best? What if truth had found a moment to speak softly through the pain? Would your hands still warm the silence when the snow begins to rain? Sometimes warmth gets lost in winter, sometimes love forgets its way, sometimes hearts grow tired of hoping for a dawn that won't obey, and I feel the world grow colder in the dark you used to roam. All the warmth you tried. When the winter grows near, I still listen, and the quiet feels familiar, like the shadows we let pass. There's a candle on the table, burning low just like before, and its wavering little heartbeat feels like yours, but nothing more. I wrap my hands in silence as the daylight turns to blue, And the winter sky grows heavy with the weight I kept for you. Every step you ever made here still remembers where you stood. And the air turns cold and gentle in a way that feels like us. If the snow had fallen softer on the night you chose to leave, would the cold have held you steady? Would the wind have let you breathe? 'Cause when the winter calls your name, I can hear it in my chest, in the echo of the distance where your memory comes to rest. If the snowball pulls you forward to the love we couldn't tame, no, the season keeps you near me when the winter calls your name. The streets are lined with silver in the quiet evening air, and the lamplights flicker softly like they know you won't be there. There's a bench beside the crosswalk where we watch the world go by, and I still can hear you humming in the wind that passes by. Your scarf still smells like cedar mixed with something close to home, and I hold it when I'm lonely, just to feel I'm not alone. All the warmth you tried to offer, all the truths you couldn't claim, live inside the frozen footprints where the winter says your name. If the night had been more gentle, if my words had found a way, would your footsteps still surround me in the fading light of day? 'Cause when the winter calls your name, I can hear it in my chest, in the echo of the distance where your memory comes to rest. If the snowball pulls you forward to the love we couldn't tame, no, the season keeps you near me when the winter calls your name. What if time had moved much slower when you looked away that night? Would we still be standing gently in the soft December light? What if fear had lost its meaning? What if love had learned to stay? Would I still be tracing shadows of the warmth you gave away? Now the world turns quiet silver as the snow begins to fall, and I hear your voice beneath it, faint, familiar, soft and small, like a distant echo drifting through a world that's not the same. But the winter keeps reminding me where to find you in its name. I hear you in the cold. When the winter calls your name, all the memories rise again, and I breathe the fragile chorus of the love we couldn't mend. If tomorrow feels too distant, if your heart feels lost or strained, I'll be here beneath the snowfall when the winter speaks your name. So I walk into the stillness where your memory softly stays, and I follow every snowflake like it's guiding me your way. If the season ever finds you with a longing you can't frame, you
whisper in your name.
Winter held you long after I could. The early dawn is quiet as the frost begins to thin, and the winter sky grows tender, like it's learning how to end. There's a space beside the doorway where your boots once left their trace. Now the floor is soft with silence, like it's folding around your place. The air still tastes like snowflakes from the nights you wouldn't speak, and the cold remembers secrets that you whispered soft and weak. Every window holds your shadow in a fading silver glow, and the house begins to soften where your memory used to grow. If your heart had found its courage, if the cold had eased its claim, would your warmth still reach the morning? Would I wake and hear your name? But winter finally let you go in a way I'll never know. Every snowflake held your longing, every silence kept it slow. If tomorrow leaves you empty, or your past begins to show, you will find me in the quiet where the winter lets you go. The teapot hums so faintly, like it's singing something old, and the rim of your old mug still remembers how you'd hold. There's a photo by the bedside where your smile leaned into mine. Now the light across the paper feels like echoes out of time. Your breath still shapes the hallways when the wind begins to bend, and I hear you in the ceiling like a promise near its end. If I'd held your fear more gently, if I'd stayed when you withdrew, would the winter break its silence? Would it still release from you? Every heartbeat turns to snowfall, every tear becomes a glow, and I wonder if you feel this where the colder currents flow. But winter finally lets you go in a way I'll never know. Every snowflake held your longing, every silence kept it slow. If tomorrow leaves you empty, or your past begins to show, you will find me in the quiet where the winter lets you go. What if time had bowed before us? What if truth had learned to stay? Would your footsteps still be warming all the nights that fade away? What if fear had lost its power? What if love had dared to rise? Would your voice still color evenings? Would I still read your goodbyes? Now the world grows soft and silver as the snow begins to clear, and your outline fades to memory, but your presence stays sincere. Every gust becomes a story, of the things I can't forgo, of the moment winter whispered, you can finally let them go. I'm letting go because winter did. Yes, winter finally let you go, with a mercy soft and low. Every breath of fading coldness feels like healing in its flow. If the world brings you to sorrow, or to places you don't know, you'll remember in the stillness why the winter let you go. So I walk into the morning where the light is calm and new, and I carry just the kindness from the time I shared with you. If the seasons ever call you toward the warmth you couldn't show, I'll be standing in the sunrise, knowing winter let you go. The first snow still whispers your name. The first snow falls in silence on the railing by the gate, and it feels like something fragile that the world forgot to wait. There's a scarf you used to favor, folded neatly by the door. Every thread still holds your warmth, like a truth I can't ignore. The early winter moonlight spreads across your empty chair, and the room grows slightly brighter, like it hopes you'll reappear. Every shadow in the corner looks a little too like you, and I breathe a little slower just to feel what isn't true. If your heart had stayed a moment, if the cold had eased its claim, would you still be here beside me? Would the snow still say your name? 'Cause this is where the first snow learned your name, where the quiet feels the same. Every flake becomes a memory, every drift becomes a flame. If the winter brings you aching, or your past begins to frame, you will hear me in the silence where the first snow learned your name. I walked the path we wandered when the nights were soft and near, where you slipped your hands in mine just to chase away the fear. Now the branches bend with snowfall in the shape your shadow knew, and the lights along the sidewalk glow the way they did with you. Your voice returns in echoes from the wind between the trees, and the world seems to remember every promise on the breeze. If I'd held your heart more gently, if I'd warmed your trembling frame, would the snowfall feel less lonely? Would it whisper something tame? Every memory falls like like starlight. Every tear becomes a spark. And I wonder if you feel me when the snow replaces dark. 'Cause this is where the first snow learned your name, where the quiet feels the same. Every flake becomes a memory, every drift becomes a flame. If the winter brings you aching, or your past begins to frame, you will hear me in the silence, where the first snow learned your name. What if time had held you closer? What if love had found its voice? Would your hand still warm the evenings if we'd made another choice? What if fear had thought more slowly? What if truth had learned to stay? Would we still be tracing snowflakes in the soft December gray? Sometimes endings come like frostbite, slow at first, then sharp and deep. Sometimes love becomes a snowfall, falling gently as we sleep. And I feel the weight of winter in the hush where you once came, in the quiet place where snow first spoke your fragile name. I still hear it, your name, in the snow. Yes, this is where the first snow learned your name, where my heart won't feel the same. Every whisper in the moonlight lights the embers of our flame. If tomorrow finds you searching for the love you can't reclaim, you will find me softly waiting, where the first snow learned your name. So I walk into the winter, where your memory melts the cold, and I listen to the snowfall tell the stories left untold. If the world should lead you homewards through the white December frame, you will hear me in the snowfall, calling softly just your name. White bread on an empty night feels like the only thing that stays. The night is washed in silver from the moon behind the clouds, and I hear your name in whispers from the quiet of the town. There's a coat you left last winter, still hanging by the frame. I keep brushing past its softness just to feel you once again. The windows fog with memories every time the cold wind sighs, and my breath becomes a lantern in the dark that won't go by. I step outside and watch it linger in the stillness of the air, like the love you tried to offer, fading slowly, always there. If the winter had been warmer, when your heart began to shake, would you still be here beside me? Would we bend before we break? 'Cause my white breath on an empty night draws your outline in the light. Every sigh becomes a story, every memory a bite. If the snow recalls your heartbeat in a fragile distant sight, you will find me standing gently with my breath upon the night. The street is dim and narrow, but it holds the steps we made, where you wrapped your scarf around me as the winter gently swayed. Now the lampposts cast a shadow that resembles how you'd stand, slightly tilted into warmth with your fingers in my hand. Your voice returns in fragments in the creak of frozen trees, in the hush of early snowfall, in the trembling winter breeze. And I hold these little pieces like they're all I have of you. Every breath becomes a prayer, every silence becomes true. If the night had stayed more patient, if you'd heard my quiet plea, would your footsteps still be walking through the winter back to me? 'Cause my white breath on an empty night draws your outline in the light. Every sigh becomes a story, every memory a bite. If the snow recalls your heartbeat in a fragile distant sight, you will find me standing gently with my breath upon the night. What if time had held you tighter? What if fear had lost its sound? Would the cold still feel this endless in the space you're not around? Sometimes love is quiet snowfall, falling soft but building deep. Sometimes hurt is frozen water, breaking slowly when you speak. And I wonder if you feel it when the first snow starts to fall. All the nights we never finished, all the dreams we left too small. Your reflection in the moonlight still appears when winds ignite, and I chase it through the darkness with my breath across the night. I still breathe your name. My white breath on an empty night holds your memory inside. In the stillness of December, in the fading candlelight. If tomorrow brings you wistful, if your heart feels winter's bite, I'll be standing in the quiet with my breath upon the night. So I walk into the silence, let the winter take its hold, And I whisper to the shadows all the stories left untold. If the world should lead you homeward through the frost of blue and white, you will see me softly waiting, breathing warmth into the night. Winter starts quietly, just like the day you walked away. The frost is on the window, drawing patterns like your hands, and the air is barely moving, like it's scared to understand. There's a scarf you left behind you, hanging loose upon the chair. I wrap it around my fingers, just to feel you linger there. The streets outside are empty, in the hush of early snow. Every echo feels familiar, like the parts of you I know. I can hear your fading laughter in the cold that fills the night, and the winter seems much deeper since you slipped beyond my sight. If the world had held you softer, if the cold had spared your name, maybe love would still be warm and all the places left the same. But winter starts where you left, in the breath you couldn't keep, in the way the nights grow longer, in the secrets that I keep. If the snowfall brings your memory, I will meet it with regret. For the season learned to find me where your footsteps still are set. I brew the tea you favored, let it steep the way you liked, and the cup begins to fog up like the nights we used to fight. There's a photo on the table with your smile half in the shade, and the truth is I still tremble, seeing love we never made. Outside the wind grows colder, pushing branches toward the night, and I swear the world is quieter when it's missing your soft light. Every snowflake tells a story of the days we let slip by, and the frost along the edges feels like tears I never cried. If the warmth had stayed beside you, if the fears had learned to rest, would your heart still beat here gently in the place you knew the best? But winter starts where you left, in the nights that never warm, in the empty space beside me where you used to keep me calm. If the snowfall brings your memory with the softness I forget, I will hold it like a secret in the winter you beget. What if love had grown much braver than the storm you carried home? What if I had learned to listen to the ache you felt alone? What if truth had come much sooner, warm enough to melt the fear? Would you still be wrapped in blankets, reading softly in my ear? Sometimes hearts don't break in thunder. Sometimes loss is quiet snow, falling slow in gentle layers till you drown before you know. And I wonder if you feel it when the night turns bitter blue. All the winter in the silence still belongs to me and you. Winter starts where you left. Yes, winter starts where you left. In the cold beneath my skin, in the nights that keep repeating, where our story should have been. If tomorrow finds you lonely, or the frost begins to set, know the season still remembers where your footsteps never met. So I walk into the snowfall, let it settle on my chest. Let the wind recall the moments that my memory can't arrest. If the world should ever call you through a winter you can't bear, I'll be waiting in the quiet where your leaving lingers there. Winter starts where you left. Winter stayed longer after you didn't. The first snow melts so slowly on the railing by the door, and the quiet feels much heavier than it ever did before. There's a jacket you once favored still hanging by the stairs, like it's waiting for your shoulders, like it's hoping you'll be there. The morning spreads in silver across the room you used to warm, and I sit beside the window as the sky prepares a storm. Every snowflake feels like something you were never meant to lose, and the cold becomes a story only heartbreak gets to choose. If the winter had been kinder, if your fear had not been fierce, would you still be sitting with me? Would I brush away your tears? 'Cause winter stayed longer after you, when the things you couldn't do. Every breath of freezing weather feels like longing drifting through. If the world recalls your footsteps on a path you couldn't view, you will find me softly waiting in the winter left by you. The kettle hums a memory of the nights we used to keep, when you curled into the blankets just to slowly fall asleep. Your laughter once lit corners of this room in quiet gold. Now the shadows feel much deeper in a way that feels too cold. Your fingerprints on glasses still shimmer when I clean, and I almost hear you whisper in the spaces in between. If I'd held your heart more gently, if I'd listened when it broke, would the winter feel less bitter? Or would your silence still be smoke? Every moment turns to frostbite Every word becomes a sigh, and I wonder if you feel me when the snow begins to cry. 'Cause the winter stayed longer after you, in the frost you never knew. Every echo through the hallway feels like parts you can't undo. If your shadow drifts in snowfall, in a shade of distant blue, you will find me breathing slowly in the winter left by you. What if truth had stayed unbroken? What if fear had turned away? Would your hand still warm the evenings and the words we couldn't say? What if time had stopped its trembling? What if love had held its ground? Would your heart still beat beside me in a world less winter bound? Now the snow keeps falling softly, like it knows the things we hide. Every flake becomes a memory of the nights you almost cried. And I feel you in the trembling of the cold that filters through. Winter stayed because it needed something left behind by you. You're still every drifting distant snowfall feels like reaching out for you. If tomorrow finds you lonely or regret comes into view, you will know I kept the season and the winter left by you. So I wrap the night around me like the warmth you used to be, and I watch the snowfall gather in the spaces we can't see. If the world should ever call you back to where your heart once grew, I'll be waiting in the quiet, in the winter left by you. Snow things fade slowly. Your footprints are one of them. The snowfall builds in layers on the street we used to cross, and the wind drifts soft and hollow like it's grieving for our loss. There's a trail of frozen footprints leading nowhere but the past. Every step still holds your shadow, every echo seems to last. Your scarf remains untaken on the hook beside the door, and I catch its fading fragrance like you're here a breath before. The cold air fills the hallway with a calm that feels untrue, and the snow outside keeps whispering all the things I lost in you. your steps still mark the pavement? Would they lead me to your chest? 'Cause your footprints fade slower than you did in the winter where you hid. Every line of frozen memory holds the truth we left amid. If tomorrow brings you longing for the love you once forbid, you will find me near the snowfall where your steps outlive what you did. The lamp beside the window glows a gentle muted gold, and I see your shape in shadows on the nights that feel too cold. There's a coat you wore on Sundays still resting on the chair, and I trace its worn out edges like you're breathing somewhere there. Your voice plays in the quiet of the floorboards when they sigh, and I hear you through the ceiling like a fading lullaby. If I'd held your heart more gently, if I tried to understand, would your footsteps still be leading back to where we used to stand? Every moment turns to frostbite, every tear becomes a mark, and I wonder if you feel me when you wander through the dark. 'Cause your footprints fade slower than you did in the winter where you hid. Every line of frozen memory holds the truth we left amid. If tomorrow brings you longing for the love you once forbid, you will find me near the snowfall where your steps outlived what you did. What if time had stayed beside us? What if love had learned to breathe? Would the snow still feel this endless in the nights you used to leave? What if truth had not been fragile? What if fear had lost its hold? Would your feet still draw me homeward through the dim December cold? Now the world is pale and quiet as the snow begins to rise. Every flake repeats a memory in the corners of my eyes, and your trail becomes a story of a heart too scared to bid. But your footprints stay much longer than the moment when you slid. You left slowly, but your footprints stayed. Yes, your footprints fade slower than you did in the winter you outbid. Every echo in the stillness holds the truth you kept amid. If the cold returns your heartbeat in the place you once forbid, you will find me gently waiting where your footprints always hid. So I follow every footprint till the snow begins to blur, and I whisper to the darkness all the things I felt for her. If the world should lead you backward through the years we never rid, I'll be standing in the quiet where your footprints never did it. You left early, but your voice stayed. The winter breath creeps softly through the cracks beneath the door, and the quiet feels much heavier than it ever has before. There's a mug you once held gently on the table, slightly warm, and I hold it like a secret that survived the final storm. Your whisper lingers faintly in the corners of the night, like a lantern barely glowing, just enough to feel your light. Every snowflake seems to echo all the things you couldn't say, and your voice becomes the shadow that the cold won't drift away. If the winter had been softer, if your heart had found its rest, would your breath still fill this silence? Would your voice still warm my chest? 'Cause your voice stayed longer than you did in the room where we once hid. Every sigh in winter's breathing sounds like words you kept amid. If tomorrow brings you longing, or a memory you forbid, you will find me softly listening to the voice that never slid. The lamps along the hallway glowing soft but fragile gold, and I hear your gentle laughter in the places growing cold. There's a jacket by the bedside with a tear along the seam, and I swear I see you wearing it every time I fall asleep. Your voice returns in echoes when the wind leans toward the glass, and it trembles with a promise from a love we couldn't pass. If I'd held your pain more tightly, if I'd stayed through what you hid, would your footsteps still be present? Would you stay where your voice did? Every memory melts like frostbite, every truth becomes a plea, and I wonder if you hear me when the night forgets to breathe. 'Cause your voice stayed longer than you did in the room where we once hid. Every sigh in winter's breathing sounds like words you kept amid. If tomorrow brings you longing, or a memory you forbid, you will find me softly listening to the voice that never slid. Time had held you closer, what if fear had bowed in shame? Would your laughter still warm mornings? Would your tears still know my name? What if truth had found its courage? What if love had not been shy? Would our nights still glow with comfort? Would we still look eye to eye? Now the evening leans in silence as the snowfall starts to glow, and the world repeats your whisper in a voice I used to know. Every flake becomes a message, falling soft but never hid, and the winter keeps reminding how your voice outstayed what you did. Break I still hear you, even now. Yes, your voice stayed longer than you did, held the truth you never bid. Every echo in the twilight feels like footsteps that you slid. If the cold returns your heartbeat, or a past you can't outbid, you will find me gently waiting for the voice that always did. So I walk into the stillness where your warmth had once begun, and I breathe the winter slowly like your story's never done. If the world should lead you homewards down a snowy silent grid, you will hear me in the quiet where your voice